My crazy neighbor lies, claiming that she and her kids had access to my jacuzzi because those are the neighborhood rules. But when I refused, she tried to steal the water and then poisoned it. I just created this account because a friend suggested I post here, maybe get some advice too. I am not sure how to format for Reddit, but he told me to give it a try. I live on a large property with a small guest house out front. There are many small hot springs in the semi-rural mountain area where I live, and lots of homeowners use them in their yards. Some springs are piped indoors, while others have jacuzzis built around them. I have an active one in my yard, a ground-level jacuzzi fed directly by the spring. Near the house of my neighbor on the left, the one I'll call Crazy Neighbor, because the others are normal, a small stream runs behind all the backyards in the neighborhood. People use it for their gardens and the little natural areas everyone on the street enjoys. I have a small fruit and pepper garden that I water with that stream, and I take very good care of it. A good amount of water flows down, and everyone on the street uses it in some way. My neighbor to the right, a super chill guy I'll call Jay, made some small ponds fed by the stream, and 2 houses down there's a garden similar to mine. Now, on to the story. When I bought the house, the former owners had been sued by Crazy Neighbor, who claimed the land was legitimately hers. I don't know the details, but the case was dismissed as far as I know. They warned me about her and told me not to get involved with her family. When I moved in, Crazy Neighbor's kids, about 8, 9, and 10 years old, came over with cookies to welcome me. I thought the former owners were exaggerating because the kids seemed sweet. I invited Crazy Neighbor and her family to a small barbecue, and they accepted. As soon as they stepped inside, she started explaining the neighborhood rules. Everything sounded normal at first: no loud music after 9, keep your car in the driveway so the street doesn't get crowded, and so on. Just common sense stuff. Then she got to the rules about the stream and the springs. She claimed that the kids were allowed in any part of the stream, even in private yards, and that everyone could use each other's springs. Since I have the only spring on the street, that caught me off guard. I interrupted her and said I wasn't comfortable with that. She huffed, insisting that all the neighbors agreed. I told her I still didn't feel comfortable. She ignored me and went on with more questionable rules. The rest of the evening was fine, but I knew I didn't want a repeat. Over the next few days I talked to several neighbors, and every single one told me to stay away from Crazy Neighbor and that her rules were nonsense. I went to her house and told her I had spoken with the others and that I didn't want anyone in my yard without my permission. She huffed again and said okay. Later, I had lunch with Jay, and he explained who she really was, a serial plaintiff with her lawyer on speed dial. Crazy Neighbor had once sued a small pizza chain in town, ruining them financially, claiming their pizza had peanut oil despite her allergy. The chain didn't even use peanut oil, and many people believe she added it herself. But the chain still lost everything. I decided not to interact with her or her family anymore. A week later, I came home from the grocery store and saw her kids splashing in my spring jacuzzi. It's outside and normally covered with a lid that 2 small children absolutely could not lift. It's heavy and large. I told them they weren't allowed there and needed to leave immediately. They stood their ground and told me their mom had said it belonged to them and they could use it whenever they wanted. I told them that wasn't true and they needed to leave now. They eventually left. Before you think I overreacted, remember that pools and jacuzzis are dangerous, and I don't want to be responsible if something happens. I went out to buy locks for my gates. When I came back, Crazy Neighbor was already there, demanding to know why I had kicked out her kids. She reminded me of her rules, but I told her to leave immediately and said my security camera was recording. She yelled insults for a minute or two, then left. I was bluffing. I didn't have cameras, but I ordered some that night. The next day was quiet. I transplanted many of my plants from my old apartment balcony into the garden that's watered by the stream. I noticed Crazy Neighbor kept peeking over the fence. Over the following weeks, she complained about my trees, the color of my fence, what I was doing with the stream, everything. She would occasionally come over, and I'd tell her to get off my property. 3 weeks ago, I left for a couple of days for a friend's wedding. I started getting security alerts, movement detected in my yard. It was often her kids playing in my garden, trampling my beloved. So I don't think it's chlorine, but whatever it is, it's killing my plants quickly. I haven't eaten any of the fruit or peppers since then because I'm worried about getting sick. I think that if I can get solid proof that she did it, I might be able to use it in court to show just how crazy she is. People bathe in pools fed by the stream, so I warned Jay not to do that for now and asked him to let others know. I know one neighbor even dug up her garden and moved it away from the stream in case the contamination reached her area. I'm not sure what I should do now. I don't think I live in a two-party consent state for video recordings since nothing like that appeared in the PDF I found. I might cross-post this to the legal advice sub just in case. I already have a lawyer, but hearing some free internet opinions might help. Edit, I forgot to mention that water test strips arrive tomorrow. Update 1. Jay offered to use a large drum he has in his garage to temporarily block the water from flowing down the stream. After reading your comments, I'm going to take him up on that. All the neighbors I've talked to so far, 2 besides Jay, agreed. One neighbor who has 2 kids said he might block the stream at its starting point. It's a small outlet from a moderately sized creek, so it probably won't be that hard to block. Jay said he can likely set up the drum tonight since his dad can help. Jay also has a great dog and definitely wants to protect him. I'm going to pull my plants out of the soil near the stream as well. For reference, the stream is only about 12 to 24 inches wide. It's really just a little creek. There are many obstacles along it that would probably filter stuff out, but we still need to be cautious. I'll update later tonight or tomorrow. Update 2. Great news. The neighbor kids from the Kind family upstream built a small dam at the start of the stream. It's just a couple of boards, a branch or 2, and a bunch of small stones. A tiny trickle of water still flows, but it gets absorbed into the ground before it reaches crazy neighbor's house. Jay brought out the drum, but it turns out we don't need it. There's still water in the pools in his yard, and we plan to run a water test. Apparently, they sell pH tests at a store just 10 minutes away, so I'll go as soon as I finish this post. Update 3. She's going to get a pH test and a dissolved oxygen test, but I'm not sure how the oxygen part fits into all of this. I'll read the responses and decide what to do next. I'll be calling the authorities soon. Update 4. The water test results are in. The pH downstream came out lower than the water before Crazy Neighbor's property, 0.9 points lower. Nitrates were a bit higher, and dissolved oxygen was significantly lower. Those were the only real differences between the 2 tests. I'm wondering if she just poured a bunch of vinegar. I think herbicides do change pH, but a drop of 0.9 seems like a lot. Update 5. Big update, the improvised dam broke, and water has been flowing downward again, but slowly. Crazy neighbor complained to another neighbor who lives farther up the street, one of the few people she actually talks to, saying I'm a huge jerk for not letting her kids use my spring jacuzzi. She let it slip that she poured household vinegar into the stream as justice. She also showed that neighbor the pipe contract and admitted it wasn't even signed by me. She and her lawyer had signed it themselves, but there wasn't even a signature space for me. I thought she had forged my signature, but there wasn't any agreement at all, fraudulent or otherwise, on my part. I sent all the information to a local environmental nonprofit that has contacts inside environmental protection agencies. They normally deal with lakes and spill events, so this falls within what they handle regularly. The police were outside Crazy Neighbor's house a couple of hours ago and took her to the station. She's already back home and is currently yelling insults at me over the fence while I drink my coffee. I don't know if she was arrested and posted bail, or if they just took her in for questioning or something. I know her brother-in-law works at the station, but I wouldn't be surprised if her family has a strained relationship with her. I hope she gets a huge fine and/or jail time. Her lawyer still hasn't notified me about the piping situation, and my lawyer says she doesn't have a case at all. I'll update when something interesting happens. Update 6. My power just went out in most of the house. I think Crazy Neighbor just flipped my breakers to mess with me. I'm heading outside now. Update 7. Yep, Crazy Neighbor flipped the breakers. As far as I know, the security camera has internal battery life for a while after it's unplugged from power, so I don't have to worry about her doing anything else. Update 8. While the government deals with my neighbor, I'd like to do the most legally annoying thing possible. Right now I'm thinking about removing the piping and mailing each piece separately. Hello again, I think I'll send every individual piece through a local shipping store. I know the owner, and I think he'd find it hilarious and agree to the plan. Please help me think this through. Remove the piping from the ground and separate each piece into plastic bags and boxes. Bring everything to the shipping store. Schedule deliveries for each package at spaced-out intervals for a long time. Require a signature for every delivery. Tip the store owner $100. What do you think? What else could I do? Update 9. I called the shipping store owner and he agreed to everything I mentioned earlier. I removed all the pipes from my yard and bagged them. I didn't have as many plastic bags or boxes as I thought, so I'm paying extra for the store owner to provide them. He just delivered the first package to Crazy Neighbor. I watched from the street, and her husband answered the door. He yelled for her, and she came out. I couldn't hear the conversation, but she signed for the delivery, took the package, a single small angled pipe piece, and stormed into the house. She then went upstairs to a second-story window and started staring at me. She's still staring while I'm sitting on my couch writing this. Working from home is going to make this interesting. Update 10. Since my last post, there was another pipe delivery for Crazy Neighbor, and she's furious. Right after signing for it, though I thought she would stop signing by now, she stormed over to my house and started pounding on my door. I started recording my front door and then opened it. I'm not dumb enough to let her inside. Crazy Neighbor began shrieking about how horrible I am and insisted that I had to keep the pipes installed because they were her property and that we had a contract. When I told her the contract wasn't legal at all, she screamed even louder. I stepped inside for a moment and called the police with the door closed. She kept banging on the door. I didn't open it again until a patrol car came down the street. I told the officers I didn't want her on my property again and that she was trespassing. They relayed that to her, and she instantly switched to an old wounded lady act. Keep in mind she's only in her 40s. Crazy Neighbor then told the police that my jacuzzi had burned her youngest child and that I was attracting children. I showed the officers the security footage, and they asked her to come to the station with them. I'm guessing she filed some kind of false report, but I imagine this will lead to another charge for lying to an officer. I think the officer, not her brother-in-law, believed me and realized she was actually a crazy neighbor. I saw her return home, and once again she went to the upper window to stare. I closed the blinds. I honestly thought she'd stop. It doesn't really bother me, but to my surprise she crossed the street toward the hill. There's a slope across from the houses, and more houses sit up the hill. She looked through my front window. I don't have blinds on that one, and I was about to go to another room when I saw her stumble backward. There's a little rainwater trench, and she fell straight on her butt. She let out an ungodly scream, well, it wasn't that loud, but I like to say it was, and stormed back home. At this point, with everything my lawyer, Reddit, and the neighbors have told me, confirming that I'm completely in the right and she's completely unhinged, this has become more entertainment than frightening. I have several locks arriving in a couple of days, and a new camera for the side yard. If you have legal suggestions, let me know. If there's anything I should be aware of, please tell me. Update 11. I've been told that messing with Crazy Neighbor probably won't help me legally, especially if I want a restraining order. So I told the shipping store owner to deliver everything in one go. I'm not sure if it already happened, but I'm fine not watching it. I'm going to request a restraining order today. I don't know how it works, but I hope I can complete it. No new news about Crazy Neighbor, except Jay says she looks very angry. I know this isn't a major update, but it's progress. Update 12. This happened last night, and I was too tired to update afterward. Crazy Neighbor. Update 13. I had written this earlier, but it didn't save as a draft, so I'll paraphrase it instead of rewriting everything word for word. I went out to pick up my mail and noticed Crazy Neighbor running out onto her porch just to watch me. I grabbed the mail and went back inside. Among the endless sea of spam, there was a wedding invitation. Nobody I know nearby is getting married, and I didn't recognize the names or the faces. On the back was a handwritten letter thanking me for offering my home for the bachelorette party and inviting me to the wedding at a local venue. I definitely never invited anyone to use my property for a party. My backyard isn't even big enough for a large gathering, and I have no idea who these people are. I took photos of the front and back of the invitation, then made a copy, trimmed it to size, and walked across the street in front of crazy neighbor's house. She was watching from the doorway. Then I safely lit the copy on fire. She came running out and started screaming at me. I didn't fully hear her because I had a headphone in my left ear listening to a podcast. I listened to podcasts during my routines and didn't bother taking it out. At one point, I heard the groom's name, and it was clear she was behind this. I already suspected it, this just confirmed it. I called her husband and told him I wasn't hosting the party and that they needed to leave me alone. He asked, "Which party?" I told him the names of the bride and groom. He sounded surprised and then told me the groom is crazy neighbor's son from a teenage pregnancy, not with him. He said he'd talked to her, calling it an accident. I looked up the groom's father's name and called him. He sounded genuinely grateful when I explained who I was. I asked him about crazy neighbor, and he said she left the baby with him, and when she filed for child support, the judge ruled that the baby was her responsibility due to her own decisions. He received custody without having to pay support. I told him about the situation, and he sounded exhausted. Apparently, the groom quickly forgave his absent mother, crazy neighbor, and invited her, against the father's wishes. He said he would tell the groom and bride what was going on. Then I had the perfect revenge idea. I offered to host the bachelorette party for free, with 2 rules. Don't damage anything. Clean up afterward. And, they block crazy neighbor at the wedding door despite her invitation. My own invitation to the wedding still stands. He said he would talk to the bride and groom, though he warned it might not be worth trying. I just realized I wrote all this in detail despite what I said at the start. I'll probably hear something in the next few days. Edit, just a clarification, not that anyone brought it up yet, but someone might. The wedding is on the 24th. I'm pretty sure the invitation I received was a leftover being sent out after the fact, because I doubt they would send invitations this last minute. Crazy neighbor reached out to the groom when she learned he was getting married. The groom is in his 20s and had never seen his biological mother before, at least as far as I know. Update 14. I was reading some comments just before posting this and realized I don't want to get myself into trouble, so I'm staying out of it. Also, the groom's father called me very late last night and said the groom wants to meet his mother, crazy neighbor, at the wedding. The bride supported him, thinking it would make the wedding super heartwarming. The groom's father said he would try to find another place for the bachelorette party, but it would be difficult this late since the bride has a large bridal party. The groom's father is going to help crazy neighbor with the wedding preparations at his son's request, even though he thinks it could be a disaster. My plants near the stream look scorched, as if they'd been in a fire, specifically the ones next to and around the stream, not the ones in my garden. I think the next steps need to be through legal channels, not petty actions. I'll keep you updated. Update 15. Crazy neighbor has been trying to get access to the spring ever since she found out about it. She tried lawsuits, boundary disputes, and other legal, and legally questionable, methods. When she learned her son was getting married, she thought she had a good chance to gain access to the spring. First, she offered to host the bridal shower at her house for a fee, but since she had nothing suitable for a party, the bride turned her down. They couldn't find another venue, but the bride still didn't want to use crazy neighbor's house. That's when crazy neighbor came up with the brilliant idea of telling the bride and groom that she had a healing, natural spring in her backyard. The bride said yes. This is when she attempted to divert my spring into her yard. Obviously, she didn't get far with that plan. After I dismantled all the piping, she offered my house and backyard for the party. I think contaminating the stream was a rage response from before she made that offer. There's nothing else new, aside from this information I pieced together from various sources. Update 16. The groom's father called me about 10 minutes ago. I was going to post the update right away, but I started reading some comments. Here's what he said and asked. He wanted to know if my offer to host the bridal shower was still available. This version is heavily paraphrased for readability, but all the key points and facts are accurate. The groom's father met with crazy neighbor to talk about the wedding, mainly to set boundaries. He went to her house with his phone recording, just in case something happened, knowing her history. He spoke to her very formally, sticking to facts. When he glanced through a slightly open door into her bedroom, he used a word I can't remember, something like a glance when you're avoiding eye contact. He saw several white dresses laid out on her bed. They were elegant dresses, not quite wedding gowns, but definitely close. He couldn't stop looking at them. He asked her what she planned to wear to the wedding, and she said she had a couple of dresses picked out. He connected the dots and gently backed out of the conversation. Then he called the bride and groom and told them what he saw. After that, he told the groom more of crazy neighbor's background. The bride then asked if the bridal shower could still be held at the house with the spring. The groom's father told me he knows I dislike crazy neighbor and that I wouldn't attend the wedding, but the rest of the arrangement would remain the same. I told him of course, but not to tell crazy neighbor, letting her believe she somehow pressured me into hosting it. I also know that the agencies investigating the vinegar contamination have been looking into things. So although I'm not expecting it, I kind of hope everything blows up for her on the wedding day. Update 17. People have been asking for an update. There hasn't been much activity from crazy neighbor lately. I think she installed a little stool on her side of the fence because she's been giving me the evil eye every time I'm in the jacuzzi. The wedding is next weekend, so I'm curious how things will unfold. Nothing else significant has happened. Update 18. People have told me to bathe naked in the spring as revenge. I'm not doing that. I'm not nearly sociable enough for my neighbor to see me like that. But I do know some people who wouldn't mind. This happened yesterday around 1 o'clock. I told a couple of friends, people who are comfortable with their bodies, that they could come use the jacuzzi, and that I wouldn't be there, so they could do whatever they wanted. I basically begged them after explaining some of the background about crazy neighbor. They happily agreed and arrived around 1. I went out for a long lunch. Update 21. This is probably the last update, because I doubt much else will happen. Crazy neighbor still hasn't returned from the station, or she's been hiding in her house. If she truly hasn't returned, what I think is more likely, maybe she couldn't post bail, but I really don't know anything about the legal system. Apparently, she's facing more than 3 years in jail, but there's a good chance she'll get less or possibly nothing. I made some food on Saturday and invited a big part of the neighborhood over. As much as I'd like to say I was calm and composed after the assault, I felt shaky and awful, so having people around seemed like a good idea. I think it helped. Last night, I got into the spring, and it was very relaxing. Update 22. I honestly didn't think I'd be making another update because I assumed crazy neighbor would finally stop after facing legal consequences. So far she's only stopped bothering me. One of my really nice neighbors, the one whose kids helped block the stream earlier this year, is very beloved in the neighborhood. I think I'll call her Donna because I don't want to use her real name. After someone figured out what city I live in, Donna often helps watch kids for a couple of hours as a simple IOU one. It's Thanksgiving week for the kids, so many families are traveling or visiting relatives. Crazy neighbor and her husband are currently in California. You might wonder, where are their kids? She dropped all 3 of them off at Donna's door with an envelope containing $50 to cover the 2 weeks they'd be at the beach. The problem is, Donna and her whole family are in the Midwest this week visiting relatives for Thanksgiving. Crazy neighbor's kids were left standing at her doorstep for hours, presumably in cold rain, until another neighbor noticed and asked what they were doing. The kids said Donna had agreed to watch them until their parents came back. But obviously, Donna wasn't home. They didn't want to call the police because they assumed it was a misunderstanding, so they walked the kids from house to house until a newer family offered to watch them until things were sorted out. Crazy neighbor hasn't responded to anyone's attempts to reach her, and nobody really wants to involve the police. Donna is furious and said she will never watch those kids again, and that she never had any prior agreement. So far, I'm just an observer in this whole situation, so this is more a neighborhood update than anything. There will probably be another one, or several. Any advice? Nobody around here really wants government involvement, and since this doesn't directly involve me, I doubt they'd listen to me anyway. I don't know. Thanks. Edit, the overwhelming consensus is that I should call Child Protective Services. I think I'll do that, quietly, without telling anyone. Crazy neighbor is not a good person. If you want to know the full story, check the old post. It's archived, so I believe it's still viewable. Update 23. I wasn't the one who called, but someone contacted the police earlier. When I called, they told me an officer was already at the house. They're currently trying to make contact with crazy neighbor and her husband, but so far no luck. Update 24. Yesterday, crazy neighbor finally answered a call. When asked about everything, she sent screenshots from months ago in which Donna had said she might be able to watch the kids for the 2 weeks but was still making travel plans to visit her family. Donna told her it would be $2,000 for the 2 weeks, but she wasn't sure she'd be able to and that she'd let her know, not to count on it. Crazy neighbor twisted it into a huge misunderstanding and blamed Donna, and practically everyone believed her. So the kids are staying with the new family for the rest of the time in exchange for $1,000 from crazy neighbor. I'd say $1,000 instead of being arrested is a very good deal for her. She doesn't deserve it. At least the kids looked super happy spending Thanksgiving with the family, playing in the yard with their children for most of the day. I guess everyone forgot the kids only brought $50 instead of $2,000.